Starting with the Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs, 11-6. They hold the 32nd pick in the draft right now. Last year, 14-3. Dropped a couple games to 11-6 this year. Mahomes and the offense sort of out of sync throughout the entire season, but the defense took a big step forward and carried them for several parts of this season until the offense was able to turn it up a notch and go on the Super Bowl winning run. Now there's a three-peat in mind. People are talking about the first team. I believe it would be the first team ever in the NFL to have
yes, no, the first team in the Super Bowl era, at least. I think if you go way back.
Well, we're not counting. Yeah, we're not counting that. So three-peat of the Super Bowl. So our big question here, and I'll make it very clear because Ziggy got mad in our group chat when I didn't give him his fair credit. These questions are originated from Ziggy, or at least the intro questions for these topics. How do the Chiefs improve their offense this season, Ziggy?
So the Chiefs are faced with an interesting sort of dilemma, right? Because as we saw last season, this team can win a Super Bowl with just an okay Patrick Mahomes-led offense and an elite defense.
Crazy.
Now, you've only got about $15 million in cap space heading into this offseason. That's not nothing, but a ton of players are leaving on defense, right? Chris Jones, L'Jarius Sneed, Willie Gay. Like, there are a lot of big-time, crucial free agents. And you can replace those guys in the draft to some extent. But the Chiefs are going to have to make some tough choices. Even if they restructure Mahomes, it's not as simple as go and just get Mike Evans or go and just get a great receiver or tight end at the top of the draft. So the Chiefs this offseason, I think their fans are going to want them to make a big splash, and you're going to hear about all of the free agents that could go to them. But it's going to be much more about hunting for bargains, getting guys like they did Juju Smith-Schuster a few years ago, who come in on affordable deals, produce well enough, and count on Patrick Mahomes to keep it going.
Well, it's funny, we'll talk about Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed in a second here, but when you look at the receiving room, really, because that's where a lot of fans' eyes are going to go. It's one of the premier positions, one of the positions that gets a ton of attention because it's such a flashy position in the NFL. Rashee Rice was a great breakout for them this year. He played very well throughout much of the second half of the year and into the playoffs. I thought he turned into, some people are saying a number one, maybe a number one on the Chiefs, but it's still a startable receiver in the NFL for sure. The Chiefs receiving room, though, had 44 drops this year. It was the most in the NFL. And think about some of the drops they had. Kadarius Toney lost the Lions game with the drop. He was off sides against the Bills. Then Marquez Valdez-Scantling, the drop against the Eagles. That unit cost the Chiefs multiple times down the stretch in big games. So they're trying to look for someone who can come in and make a difference. I don't think that they need, we were talking about Mike Evans and Tee Higgins, who's probably going to get franchise tagged anyway. But those guys, big names that would be really exciting, they don't necessarily, as you said, need to go down that route because Patrick Mahomes is that good. You mentioned someone that really raised my eyebrows, and I know Zach's going to love hearing this name. So why don't you tell everyone who you have your eyes on for the Chiefs to go after at receiver?
So we said we were going to have a target for each team. For me, the most important player for the Chiefs to target this offseason that they can reasonably get is Zach's favorite receiver in the entire NFL, besides any player on the Dolphins, Calvin Ridley. Now, if you're the Chiefs, you're looking for a guy. We don't necessarily need the ultimate number one alpha, right? You need a guy who can reliably catch the ball, who can take the top off defenses, who can run routes well. Someone who you can get on a pretty good deal, but who you can count on to be productive. And Calvin Ridley didn't have the flashiest season in the entire NFL this year, right? People didn't talk about him a lot, but he had a solid season, right? This was a guy the Jaguars were able to go to. He had some really big games. I mean, he put up over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns.
No, he did. He quietly had a 1,000-yard season.
But he's not going to be a guy who costs you $25, $20, $30 million a year. Right, he's a prime candidate again for one of those Juju Smith-Schuster type deals where the market's not what he wants it to be. He comes in, he takes, say, a year or two, short deal, not a huge rate, and he does basically the kind of deal Odell Beckham Jr. did last offseason. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for him with the Chiefs. It would improve the offense pretty quickly, and it'd give Mahomes another weapon.
Could you imagine Calvin Ridley on that offense?
I mean, the thing about Ridley that's nice is you talked about Rashee Rice broke out. Ridley can line up in a lot of different spots. He can line up in X or in Z. Mm-hmm. So whoever the Chiefs draft and whoever eventually breaks out for them, he'll be able to play around them no matter what.
Yeah, now you're talking about a unit with Kelce, Rashee Rice, Calvin Ridley. That's all of a sudden a lot more formidable than if you roll out with just Rice and, you're trying to scrape together whoever it may be. What Tony and Sky Moore right now? Tony's not coming back. So I think that could work for sure on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed both want to come back. It's almost impossible for them to pull it off right now financially before some cap maneuvering. Cap magic is possible in the NFL.
But the Chiefs don't do that kind of stuff. They are 30th in cash spending over the past 5 years. They really don't like to spend money.
Well, you have to think they'd prioritize Chris Jones, right?
Yeah, look at how the Kansas City Chiefs have operated. This is why I think Chris Jones is the one player they can't afford to lose this offseason.
Agreed.
The way they operate, and Steve Spagnuolo has done a great job of this. They love taking corners in the mid to late rounds, and then they just keep cycling them through and let them leave, right? The most recent example of that was Charvarius Ward. Excellent player, right? He left and was very good, but immediately players on the Chiefs stepped up and replaced him. As good as L'Jarius Sneed was, I don't want to discount it. He was one of the 5 best corners in the NFL this year. I just can't see him coming back to Kansas City.
It's nuts how Trent McDuffie rolls through and all of it's just great. The Vikings can't find a corner to save their life, and the Chiefs are just rotating guys in and out. Just unbelievable. Sneed said he wants to come back though. He's saying we need to make it work somehow. It's all these guys. It's kind of cool about their dynasty right now is that everyone's bought into it. I know that Chris Jones was holding out for a while, but it seems like everyone is really all in on, hey, let's just keep going. Why stop the party? I have a feeling they might be able to make it work.
I will say though, you are I think you're overselling a little bit, right? So yeah, he says he wants to come back, but he's also going on Kay Adams saying, "Hey, Brett Veach, pay me."
Right?
Look,
of course he wants money, but I think ideally he wants to come back.
I think he does, but realistically, I think the Chiefs are not going to offer him a top of the market contract. He has earned a top of the market contract. As nice as it would be for him to stay. What he is he's a number 1 corner. Chris Jones is one of the best pass rushing defensive tackles in the history of the game. You have to prioritize Jones if you're forced between them.
Well, and right now they only have Neil Farrell Jr., who he contributed for 62 snaps in 2023. That's all they have on the interior of their defensive line right now, if the season started today. So it's already a position of need. Plus, you have one of the best guys in the league, a huge difference maker, and one of the best playoff performers that we've seen at the position, too. Think about all the big plays he made in the Super Bowl. A couple plays where Purdy got hit, right? And if you don't have that pressure, maybe you're completing the pass. I know there was one. I can't remember. I keep forgetting who it was to down the sideline late in the game. But Chris Jones has been huge, yeah.
You just think about it. How many players are there in the NFL on the interior defensive line that consistently get to the quarterback? Like Aaron Donald,
like 2.
Quinnen Williams, Dexter Lawrence gets pressures. Jeffrey Simmons is very good. Chris Jones is better than almost all of those guys.
It's like Donald and Chris Jones are the guys that always come to mind. Quinnen Williams is great as well. But yeah, he's irreplaceable. So I expect him to be back in Kansas City.